Alright, people of the world. I want to finish this one in about 10-15 minutes. You'll know by I was thinking today, I stayed over at a friend's house, the guy I've done a couple of videos in the past, and a quick one. Gonna finish the book today, then go on East of Eden. I feel as though, I don't know if you lot all feel this, but like, there's a feeling in my heart where if I'm able to just crack that boundary, that sort of like that shitty mood I feel like when somebody says something that's unwarranted because like it's my mom, it's my brother, it's my friend, whether it be like Max or Isaac, whatever they say, if I just look at them like they're human too, they're allowed a valid opinion, that it's their life, it's their perspective. If I don't just sit around and you know I just let Lee do his thing. Why do I have to put it into my head that like, oh, I shouldn't be living that life? Like, I live it worse. Not to say that Lee's even doing anything wrong. That's the crazy thing. Is like all these people in my head. Yes, I was speaking to my nan yesterday as well about. She wants to move out, and I was trying to tell her like, yeah, I know you want to move out, but I don't want you to let these things get to your heart in your last days, so where they end up crushing you and you don't feel great. I'd rather you have the ability to just feel at peace at the end of your life. And I feel like I was a bit of a hypocrite because I'm trying to explain all these things, but deep down, I don't feel like I'm at peace. Deep down, I'm at peace on my surface layer, but just not deep down because I'm not letting it. I'm not letting it like osmosis down. I'm not letting it get inside deeply because I'm letting the small things affect us. When we sit there, we watch YouTube shorts and we just take a good chunk of our day out where we could be working towards that dream, and that's that life in which you do live. Little side tangent here, but like when you waste your time on social media rather than living like a life that's active with actions that take place to create something which is your dream job, your dream sport or whatever. It's it's not the fact that like, oh, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. You not going out and practicing basketball, practicing football, practicing how going for a run and stuff, that you sitting on your phone like that is what actually takes away from it, because you just it's quite a simple equation. When you spend all your time doing this, you can't spend your time doing this, when the actual goal of life isn't to constantly dream and think of doing this. No, it's about doing this for your entire life, right? That dream life isn't a dream. You have to wake up and live it, and that's the beauty of it, because your dream then becomes reality. And you have to do that, but you also have to be a piece of heart, and not let these other random things get to you, because why would you let these random things get to you, especially when they're not even malicious. Look at life, look at the beauty of it, look at your own head, question yourself. Don't ever put yourself down and dig yourself in a deeper hole like, I'm a piece of shit because I did this, I'm a piece of shit because I did that. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? Do I agree? If I don't agree, I won't die on that hill, you know? Did I do this sin? Did I do that sin? Did I hurt my mom? Did I hurt my nan? Did I say something outlandish to these people who just don't deserve that? Did I swear? Did I shout? Am I going to die on that hill? No. Apologizing is one of the hardest things you can do in the world. But apologizing is strength. Apologizing is true strength. And once you can get over that and you can say, look, I'm sorry, I really want to be a different person. And you don't even need to do that. You don't even need to go downstairs and say, look, I'm sorry, I want to be a different person to this. I don't want to shout. Just say, I'm sorry for shouting. Really, I am. I shouldn't have. You don't have to go off on a whole expose. Like, you can just say, I'm really sorry for shouting. I didn't want to. I didn't mean it. I take it back. You know. Um, that's true strength. And the yeah, be at peace. Don't let these things come into your head, because ultimately there's a different world out there, right? Where the sun rises and the sky is blue, because you're able to look past all of the clouds and the fog, and that's the stuff in your mind. The things that tell you to be depressed, that you should be depressed, that you shouldn't feel happy, that you should, think and feel these certain ways, because it's not justified for you to relieve yourself of that pressure, that pain, to have that and just let those things out. But you can't let those things out because you're not an evil person. You, me, everybody, we're not evil people, okay? Maybe I get to the point where I'm thinking, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, drinking the blood of children, raping them, eating the flesh. Is he evil? If I say he's not and I say he could have been a better person, you know, It's like, what? I'd hope somewhere deep down that there is a part of Jeffrey Epstein that could be a good man, that is a good man. You know what I mean? Because I think that I want to believe that all men are our worst. And I think one thing we can take comfort in, by comparison, don't ever really compare yourself to nobody. But if you can compare yourself, and you need to get out them depths, you can't remember. I'm not Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not that bad. You know, you may do something which was bad, but do you die on that hill? No. You know, to your very end, do you go through this martyrdom stage where you say, I'm gonna die for this action that I did? You know, if somebody comes and points a gun at your head, or like Jeffrey, they come and kill you in a cell, right? And they say, look, two choices. Recant the fact that you slapped that person in the face and apologize, or die on that hill. The pettiness and the futility of dying on that hill, on that slap, is just, it's not worth it. It's never been worth it. You know, doing bad things is never something worth dying for, and that's why you see people like Jeffrey die in those cases, because they die in what they sow, right? In what they reap is that death. Because when you do all those things in life, it doesn't take a great philosopher. It doesn't take Socrates. It doesn't take Aurelius. It doesn't take Camus. It doesn't take Sartre. It doesn't take any of these guys to be like, he's gonna die a horrible death. Like, you don't need to read a proverb to tell that, or a psalm to tell that this guy who's out there pimping girls and slapping them about, that he's gonna die a horrible, cold-hearted death. And I think the beautiful thing about that is that you and I can recognize, neither do we. We don't want to die that death. They will often die them deaths because they're willing to die on them hills because of some unfortunate, twisted heart condition. I think we're lucky though, because even though we don't want to compare, we can tell ourselves, and we can tell ourselves, we can see it clearly who we are, that we don't want to be evil people. We don't want to be these big bad people. And I'm going to come to a conclusion on this point, because I want to make another point. As a writer, I'd love to be a writer, but I think my main purpose, with the power, right? I really want to become a really well spoken about contemporary writer, who pushes boundaries, who talks about this, that, and the other. That people start saying, like on The Guardian, on these reviews and shit, they start saying, what a fantastic, right? So that I can go to places like New York, right north, and well, really, everybody else has to do their own stuff in their own places. I can't stretch as far as Leeds. It's just not my thing. It's not possible. I can't go to every primary school in Leeds. I'm saying that whoever's from Leeds, do that. Whoever's from Blackpool, do that. Whoever's from, Carlisle, whoever's from Yorkshire and stuff, do that. Do that. I really believe that all writers should. So I really would like to get all that power, that power of everybody sees me as that writer who's a good writer. So I can walk into a room and I can say, you executives, this is a good idea. We'll go to this school and we'll do a seminar. We'll go to that community centre and we'll do a workshop. Like, we have to tell these kids, this next generation. I went to an awards ceremony the other day, and I'll show you. This was the printed of the winners, and this might be one of the most proud moments of my life. This is a person who I taught in a workshop. I didn't say much, but I could tell off the bat, if you were to just give her, if you were to just not be an evil prick bastard and weigh this child down and tell them that they're not worth anything. They have heart, they have ability, they have natural, they're human, to where they're going to flourish. And this girl, she won this, and she flourished. And when we read the work out, and when I read the work, I realized the expression's beautiful, this person's confidence is beautiful, their assurance in self, their assurance in ideas are beautiful, and their child. You just have to nurture these kids. And I want that power, I want that ability. I said to the person, can I please come back next year and do it again? I want to do this every year because in my head, this is what's important. This is what's important. I'm not talking about like this other stuff, which is it won't get that done without it. So the editors, the judges and the publishers who bought like hundreds of copies of these. Um, Thank you, but I really want to be that workshop guy. I want to be able to stand up in front of a group of kids, 30, 20, 10, and tell them, you may not know it now, but I can see that you've all got the potential and you all are inherently great artists. And everybody in this room could be great poets if all they did every day was write a word or a poem or like the letter or like the colour or like this or that, and eventually they put it into a piece of work. You don't need to be a machine. You just need to know, okay, I want to write a poem. Where is it? That's what these kids deserve, is to be reassured that, like, you don't need that druggy life. You don't need to be selling. You don't need none of this. You don't need to be a gangster. There's not cool about being a gangster. What you need to do is accept that you've got possibility, accept that you've got range, and that you've got goals and dreams. Help these kids find their dreams. And I'd love to be able to do these writing things to where I can come to these kids, not just be that guy who's with the people his age and they talk about writing and the intricacies and how fucking hard it gets, because it gets hard. But instead, talk with these kids and even remind myself why I started, but let these kids know that, look, in life, like, you're not judged based on how well you can ride a bike or based on how much money you can make, how many people can you affect with this product, with that product. That's not the point. We've got too much of that. We need a new renaissance, like renaissance I think it sounds American, renaissance. Renaissance is much better. We need a new renaissance, where people just do love the work. And I don't give a fuck about renaissance. I don't give a fuck about the people in the past and what their renaissance was. I need to see people this day and age writing poems about Bangor Walk, writing poems about the metro, writing poems about the difference between Manners and Bangor Metro and the view that you get, and to point out all those things and to point out all those intricate details that they can find, and for them kids who get the Met at Jesmond and West Jesmond and stuff, and to just see these kids flourish, because ultimately all these kids get brought up and they go into English class and it's about how well you can write an essay on this and that, and your creative writing work's not too important. But I can tell you now that the reason why the world turns is because of creative writing. In my personal experience, the reason why the world operates is because of creative writing. These big men and these big corporations, they want money. But the funny thing is, they can't make money, they can't have power unless they have a production company, unless they have a say in creative work. I'm telling you, we truly don't understand the power it has in poetry. The power of poetry. And we should know the power of poetry since the ancient Greeks, since the Picts, since the ancient tribal civilizations that were here before the Germans, the ones who were bloody, not Germans, Greeks, the Germanic tribes, all these folks who sat around and did these tales, and like, we don't understand how important, how imperative it is to being a human, Back in them days, what would they do? They'd hunt, they'd sit by the fire, and they'd talk about shit, and they'd write stories, not write, but they'd I'm even thinking about, ancient Greek times and Roman times. They'd just start going with that spoken word, they'd start spitting shit. And then the novel comes and it's a boom, it's a wave of storytelling. It's profound to society. And you have to realize that, like, that and the arts, the arts, we started with so many different random shit, sculpting and watercolor and a bunch of crap that I can't even explain. I tried to use oil pastels the other day. I was like, what the fuck is this? And it's just gorgeous. If you're able to use oil pastels, try. If you can't, do it. Because the difference between you being a master at it and you just doing it, I feel like, and this is true, this is the point for these kids, this is the point for everybody out there, is that it's far braver for you to start and to just thug your way through not knowing something than it is for a master to sit in front of 100 people and to do something for them all to watch. That's not confidence, that's ego. That's ego. Okay? Some masters may be able to do that, and they may be really good teachers where they go up and they say, you see what I did there? I was just a feeling. I did this, I did that. I was learned this, I was taught that. They don't have the ego in the game. They're not like, you don't know this. It's far braver for you to stand in front of a blank canvas with oils and just do something. And if it turns out a mess, it was better than a blank canvas. I can tell you that now. If somebody came up to me and they gave me their first ever painting, and then they gave me their masterful painting, years down the line, we all know, as humans, we all know this to be true. That first painting will have such a deep impact to where, you'll think about that one more than you will the masterpiece, because you'll know the person and you'll think, this took bravery. That masterpiece took years of craft and harnessing, and I get that. But it never would have happened without that initial painting. And it's the same for everybody out there. Do that story. Do that short story. Even if people aren't buying them, write it. Write it. Write it. I don't give a fuck. Write that novel. Write that novella. Write that hybrid. Write that poetry. Do whatever. Write Write some music, man. Especially in this day and age, it's clear to see the impact of words and song and lyric. That's what we don't understand. We've put it into some sort of pop chart, into some sort of albums and records. That's not it. It's about how it makes you feel. Good songs are about how it makes you feel. And they'll say that they know how to manipulate you because they know how to do a C chord, a C major. They know how to do all that stuff, right? They know what this feels and that feels like. Go ahead and sit down on the guitar. Last night, me and the guy who was staying over, Ben, we're sitting down, and he starts strumming this guitar, and we're like, because we said let's make a goofy song, because somebody had said something in a group chat, and we were like, yeah, you know what, that's a stupid name for like a Midwest emo song. And he started plucking at these chords, and I was like, slow it down, and I felt like, what was it, I don't know, his name is Mark Rubin, no, not Mark Rubin, some guy, no, that guy in Kanye West's, oh man, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and the guy who helped Johnny Cash get his stuff out there, the big white beard. I felt like that guy, because I was like, just slow it down. I don't know music, I'm about to go to Sax in half an hour. I would have liked to have left the house right now, but I'll be doing other things. I'll clean for a little bit and then I'll leave it too. But I don't know music, and I'm telling him, like, just slow it down. Okay, try something different, like, we need to change that, we need to change that there. Okay, lyrics, okay, let me just spring ideas out there. And we started it, and we were dying of laughing, but then I was also thinking to myself, if I didn't have music and guitars playing in my ears every day, I would have to recognize that this right now, whatever's going on, is magic. Because we're in the process of what all magicians do, yeah, and musicians. There's barely a difference in this day and age, because the way it can make you feel, a magician can cast a spell and say sadness, happiness, wonder, amusement, motivation. And this is what the music does. We're forgetting about the power of things in this world. We think that the cars are reality and that's how it's meant to be, but we've forgotten about the fact that elves live in bushes. We've forgotten about the fact that fairies fly through forests. We've forgotten about the fact that unicorns roam in places that humans can't reach, and the places we can't reach, we can never get a good camera up there, and you'll never snap a good pic of something that's that fast and elusive. We live in a world full of wonder and whimsy, and I don't see why you can't be that, you can't attribute to that. Because ultimately, I don't know why this world needs more car manufacturers. I don't know why this world needs more roads. I don't know why this world needs more high-rise buildings. I don't know why any street needs another Greggs or another McDonald's. I don't think it does anything for the world. I don't think it applies to the world any greatness, any goodness. It doesn't. But you are goodness itself. You have inside of you a deep, deep, deep light which shines constantly, even in the darkest places, and the world itself is so bright that the darkness inside of you can't shun out the light that's outside. You can't deny that light, and that light always calls to you. Day in, day out, the sun rises, and you've got to recognize that it's calling you to be something great, to be someone great. Not to act as someone great, but to be you, and by being you, you are affirming you are then that great, You are a good person. You just have to do good things. You are a great artist. You just have to paint. You just have to write. You just have to start trying to sing and play with that guitar. Whatever it is. Whatever you've got. Go look at a list of 100 instruments and go pick one. You know? Do whatever. The world is at your fingertips, literally at your fingertips. We've convinced ourselves that it's not. We've convinced ourselves that we can only do things that certain people say we can do. And that's just never been right. You have complete freedom. You have complete autonomy. If you didn't, you would go crazy. And some of us feel like we're going crazy because we're not exactly doing things. I'm telling you now, you've got complete autonomy. You can do with your life what you wish and choose to be a great artist. Choose to impact the world kindly. Choose to be a good person. These are things that are just so hard to do. Don't do the easy things of messing things up. Help children be wonderful, imaginative children. Help these kids realize that for them, the life isn't about building another Greggs that doesn't need to be built, putting roads down that don't need to put down, making more cars that just serve to put more harm into the world and break their arm eventually when they mess up in manufacturing. And I'm saying this and I'm saying it now because it's not you. It's not a microcosm. My ancestors, the miners of coal, the entirety of Newcastle, what they were in my heart truly weren't coal miners. They're not coal miners. I don't think we should. I don't know why we attribute that onto it. We're not coal miners. We never have been. We're people who just have special, unique ability inside of them. And because industry came along and forced us to work, and if we didn't work, we'd be under some fucking harsh conditions. We worked. And I can say now that each and every single one of those miners, even the ones that were a little bit of abusive assholes, the ones who were tired, the ones who were fat, the ones who hated their kids, the ones who did all sorts, these lads just needed a bit of brightness in life, and they needed to realise that they are great painters, that Monet has Monet doesn't have a stroke above them, right? That these guys could be on that level and better. They have that braveness to try and be. We stop ourselves too much and think, not me. No, you. You are exactly what this world needs. Greatness, curiosity, art, intention, bravery, courage. You are what this world needs. This world needs you at your best, funny enough. This world needs you, and it needs you to try. This world needs you to be your best. This world is begging. This world is begging and pleading for you to not change into some sort of bulbous, hollow man or woman with all these scars and spots and this awful, this Jekyll and Hyde. The world is begging for you to just not. It's begging you to fight, to not fall into these lakes of acid, these pits of despair. The world is begging for you to stand upright and to walk with confidence, with bravery, to act, to be, even when it gets hard. The world doesn't care, because there's a deep, dark part of it which is telling you to never be anything, and it's going to constantly. But if all you do is say, it doesn't matter, even if this project isn't quite working, even if even if I can't grasp at this right now, I don't care. You know what, I'll do it for the sake of it. If you don't know what to write, just write. Just write. Because it's better than nothing. If you don't know what to paint, just paint. If you don't know what to play, just play. Trust me, and trust me well and fine. I believe that life has taught me something in these 23 years. That is, everybody's special, everybody's unique, and everybody is an artist. And this world is better off with you at your height, and you at your greatest, and you trying your hardest. This world doesn't want to see you fall to the wayside and be a nobody. This world is begging for you to be better, to change, to grow. Because you have to understand, naturally in this world, you have to change, and you have to grow. That's par for the course, and that's just what's going to happen. And you can go one way, you can go another. In this world, whatever's above this world, me, just me, I'm begging. Go down that path that sees you be somebody who people can look up to, that you can change people, that you can be good and kind, and you can give and you can love, and so much more. This world doesn't want to see you just be an evil old bastard. This world doesn't want to see you be ran and controlled by needles and pills and powders. It doesn't want that. It wants you to be a good, kind person who has a dream, a goal, a passion, a life, and it wants you to live it to its fullest. It does. I do. You're not a bad person. Get that shit out your head and just remember that if you stay in that pit, you'll end up convincing yourself that the only thing out there is darkness. Act. If you feel like shit, just start writing. It'll take a lot to get to that point, and it naturally will. If it feels like shit and you haven't gessoed, guess what? you know, it'll feel like, oh well, if I just doesn't matter because I'll just sit and I'll wait for it to dry now. There's things like that happen. Just you're a beautiful person, and the world is better off with you in it, and the world is better off with you having a life that is successful, fulfilling, purpose-filled, full of passion, happiness, charm, wonder, whimsy, curiosity, bravery, courage, heroism. Be that person. I'm begging you to. I genuinely am. I hope this whole video hasn't been recorded with a muted mic. Alright, we're fine.